Urania scusa medewa.
Hot purple, Medea she'll work you. Hot purple, hot purple, hot purple, Medea she'll work you. Hot purple, hot purple. Hot purple making pale deuces. Their impending doom, it was hers. All over but the crying. All that bullshit they was trying. At the gates of Babylon, money changes. Flipping tables, rearranges. Hot purple slangers. Medea she'll work you, it's a banger. Smile away from the tree line, the man of rain. Riding into the sunset. My Medea dragon venom. Jewel in the lotus. Amethyst serpent. The need for anti-venom is urgent. Athena work it. Seashell purple. Dielectric water flow. Castle Franco. Vampirella. Bellissima. The dope is hot purple. Medea she will work you. The circus and Analima. Tu jefe ese the boss. Heliocentric. Cult of the crow. Athena. Run the sky for the Mio Mars. Try a little bit of Death Bubba Kush on a trailhead full of zombies. Original sources, Ionic Omni. Hot purple, Medea she'll work you. Hot purple, hot purple, hot purple, Medea she'll work you. Hot purple.
Welcome back to Lady Babylon. This is Initiating Apocalypse. And I have some goodies tonight. Now, these are proper goodies for us. And these are things, it's been a long time since we haven't had something brought to us that's just nice. It's just nice. We spent time with Jesus on a mountain while he was self-pleasuring and feeding it to Mary. We went to a place where there were children and somebody transformed. People started getting Christed and we all ran away. Tonight we deserve something nice. I thought, you know what, Satanic Congregation, we've been dating for a while now. And I know that you deserve something nice. You really do. You deserve something nice. So this is my attempt to bring you. Please accept it with all of my humility. I hope you find it to your liking. Dedicated to you, Satanic Congregation. We will have Gnostic Informant on in a few minutes. And when we do, he's going to punch us with a couple of great sources, and he's going to work us over, and he's going to show us what he's got coming out from an excellent interview. Fantastic. It's going to blow your mind. You just get a clip of the beginning. That's fantastic. Okay. Tonight, what I want to do is I want to say, everybody, let's get off the ship. Let's go to that place that we're going, and tell me, where is it that we're going? I want to take you to the closing of the Bronze Age. I want to take you to that specific time and place in history from which this woman emerged. Yeah. Her name is Clytemnestra. And the Greeks argued about the etymology of her name. Some of them said, oh, it's from meadow, which is the same root that we find in the Medwa or the Medea. So we're stuck in this world where this person is stepping forward tonight. I want you to see her. I really need you to see her. And then once you've seen her, I'm going to Christ everybody. I'm going to Christ everybody. I'm going to Christ people in the chat right now. I'm going to Christ people who are watching this later. I'm going to Christ everyone. I'm going to Christ you everywhere, all over. I'm going to Christ you. You won't be able to walk away from tonight without being able to say confidently, I just got Christed. Yeah. Let's see where that takes us. Now, let's see where we go. I want you to focus. Her name is Clytemnestra. She is, who is she, you say? Who is this person? Why should I care? What? And what is he talking about now? I'm taking you to her. Just be quiet for a minute. She's going to come in. You're going to see her. And you may be scared. They call her the Dragon Queen. They call her the Dragon Queen. And she is the sister of Helen. She's the sister of a couple of gods, Castor and Pollux. She's the murderer of the king. Yeah. What happens in the short? He comes back from the war. His name's Agamemnon. He comes back from the war. And guess who he steps up with? Cassandra. Cassandra, who's she? She's the Bacchic priestess who ran Troy. All of her oracles come true. She's cursed though. Nobody ever listens to her. So she can spout this stuff all the time. Agamemnon comes back and outsteps Cassandra. And she tells him, you big dummy, you brought me here. I'm going to get killed and you're going to get killed. And why does she say that? Because it's Clytemnestra we're talking about, the Dragon Queen. Do you know what? I'm going to show you what she does here in a minute with a classical text. But do you know what her family is known for? Her sister Helen. Now, for the Satanic Congregation, I want to say this is for you. People don't go around talking about this kind of stuff. But the Greeks, if you dig deep enough, somebody, right? You're going to find somebody you're like, oh my God. Well, they talk about what Helen actually did. Helen was Medea, and she went to Egypt, and she cast her image to Troy. And why? Achilles. Come here, Achilles. Come here, Achilles. People don't know this. People don't know this. I'm going to show you some Greek in a second. Just wait. Achilles, come here. You know why he gets a spanking? Because he ends up in Eleusis. In the fields, the Elysian fields. He ends up there as the groom of Medea. What happened to him? What happened to him? Let's watch the magic of the Christing that they're entering. Now, Clytemnestra, remember, what does she do? What if we play back the film? What does she do? It's all digital. What? Run it back. Oh, look, Agamemnon steps in. He's getting a bath, totally oblivious. She wraps him up in a rug, really fine rug, and then she buries an axe in his brain. Now remember, who are we talking about? We're talking about Bronze Age women. Women like the Scythians who are spreading the burning purple, who are creating the Medusae. Those women who have to kill 3 men before they can mate. They're running things. They're running things. You should have seen the Sphinx, man. We have to give her virgins. Sorry, son. Oh, stop crying. You may have fun. And so her wrapping him up and cutting his brain, splitting his head open. That's not necessarily surprising. For the late Bronze Age, for the cultures that were spreading these religions, their religions are who they are. When I say religion, there's no faith, there's no doctrine. I'm talking about the practice, the execution of the mystery, the act of the mystery itself. That one thing that everybody else on YouTube says, we don't know, it's a mystery, right? The people executing that, this is their history. Now I'm going to show you what she does. Does anybody want to see what the she Christ does? Does anybody want to see what Clytemnestra does? I'm going to have a couple of women for you tonight and some things that they do. And I want you to notice the overlap. That when you find that crisscross, that radiation is the history coming through. It's the anthropology coming through the language. Oh, who doesn't want that? Who doesn't want Mother Greek to caress them? Who doesn't want that? You know what? Those Spartans. We Athenians, look, there's two things. I forgot to tell you guys this last time. There's two things that we've learned so far. When you and I go into the past and we're looking at these people, you need to remember two things. Number one, we don't bend the knee to the tyrant. We don't. You don't get down and worship something human. Don't do that. We don't do that. And number two, we Athenians know that the word for buttocks, proctos, that word, we get proctology from it, right? We know that that's because of the Spartans who speak terrible Greek. And they, it's a reference to them engaging with the Cnytus, because that's the thing. They developed that stuff down there. Remember Jesus, the mountain, right? The Cnytus, that's a part. That's why we call it a proctos. Can you feel the actual history of that? Why did I have to find that on my own? Why didn't somebody in a classroom somewhere at some time say, oh, and by the way, there's a Spartan history to this word anus? Yeah, fantastic. It's gorgeous, right? What did they figure out? Just one second to the Spartans in the group, because I know you're out there. I know some of you are descendants of Spartans. Tom was. Let me give a shout out to the Spartans for the fact that they were uncompromisingly worshipers of the gods. Yes, fantastic. Your army of lovers, that was genius. You had to have some brains. The Athenians can't be totally right. You had to have some brains because your army was interlocked physically, emotionally, and spiritually. I wonder what would happen if we did that. What if we had an army? You know what happens? You pull in a whole different dynamic because people are a lot more willing to fight for their lovers, it turns out. Isn't that strange? It's almost like it's a weapon. It's a secret weapon. Quick, somebody send that to the generals up on the top. Give me the first overlay that we've got. All right, people, I want to show you Clytemnestra. I want to show you. The war is over. We know that the ships are coming back. And what has Clytemnestra done? She set up all the altars in the city. They're burning with the gifts of incense. And I'm translating. And here and there, she reaches up to Uranos. That's the way they had of describing very tall Amazonians. You know, the daughters of men that ended up with the sons of God. Yeah, right? Okay, are you ready? So she's going around. Now, I'm going to give you my translation, which is going to differ from modern, or at least classically important translations, and I'll show you. One of them is by Browning. right? But I'm going to give you my translation, right? So here and there, this very tall Amazonian, what is she doing? She's waving her torches, because these are night rites that the priesthoods are involved in, right? Oh, what time of the day is it? I'm sorry. Does anybody know? If you've been sitting here for any amount of time and you don't say, oh, right before the sunrise? Yes. You realize, right? We caught her right in the act of the rites. And what is she? Look at that fourth line down. Pharmacomene. Covered with drugs, under the influence of drugs. What kind of drugs? Are you ready for this? Are you ready? The royal drug that comes from her innermost recesses. The holy Christing. Powered by that painkiller that causes us to be softened. Yeah. Isn't that amazing? What is she? She is covered with the drugs. She is Christing. Is this typical? I'm going to Christ all over you. I'm going to show you so much Christ tonight. Okay, let's just do it. Let's just charge ahead. Now, I'm going to come back to that passage because there's a lot going on there that's just, it's just this, it makes your soul just come alive. So we're going to come back to it as we advance. Now, watch this one, people. What is that pharmacology? So I just want you to be in there. I want you to be in there and realize it means treat by using pharmaca, generally treat, right? And it talks about Homer. So it goes all the way back to Homer. We got it connected with methu, which is where we get drunken or intoxicated. And it means number 2, to enchant or bewitch by potions or filters. Now remember, when they say enchant or bewitch, they've taken you into the back alley, right? That enchantment is a change to your mental state, right? You can be pacified. You can be horrified. There's all sorts of things they can do. The Magi, they know how to question people under the influence of drugs. They give you the drugs. You say whatever it is they want you to say, right? Because you're blown out of your mind, frightened. With the fear drugs especially. And remember what these people like Clytemnestra are doing. They're putting the purple in their hair. They're offering their hair. We have even found those offerings. We have them. This is history we're talking about, people. This is reality. This is not some idiot trying to sell you a course on mystery religions. This is reality. Look, it's the text, people. It's what the texts are saying. It's a reason to be happy because look what we've uncovered. Can you believe these women like Clytemnestra? They're scary. And they're running everything. Oh, it's a good kind of scary, though. It's supposed to be scary, right? Okay, give me the next one. What kind of gods, people, did we come together if under Clytemnestra, the dragon queen? What kind of rites are we here? All right. We're here to protect the astunomon theon. We're here to honor the gods who guard the nomos, who guard that nom of the gods. What is that nom? It's a nim. And what does it mean when you nemo? It means you bring my righteous retribution. You bring my nemesis. This is the law of the city. These are the gods that Clytemnestra serves. You mean, did that guy just say, "Hey, where's the whip? The whip's for me this time." Did that guy just say something about a woman creating civilization? You are such you son of you Do you see? Do you see what's happening? Are you surprised that she put an axe in his head? Come on, man. She had already killed 3 men to get to that point. What's the big deal? It's justice, baby. She was perfectly fine until he went south. Perfectly fine. Amazing. Swift. Give me the next one. What other gods do we worship here? Under Clytemnestra, look at the second word, Chthonion. That Chthonian divinity. Okay, if you understand that, you understand who she is. And what is the hupaton? You know what that is? That's the highest. That's the highest. You mean the Septuagint? The Septuagint is somehow being influenced or influencing this. It's the same culture. This is the gods who are the highest. The gods who are the highest. Monism turns that into the God who is the highest. But before there was a God who was the highest, there were Chthonian gods who were high. Yeah. Hupaton. Give me the next one. And finally, what are we really doing there? Look at these spirits, people. I'm going to show you some spirits you've never seen before. Are you ready? This is Clytemnestra, and she's sacrificing these cakes the air is full of this stuff. I mean, it's too much. Okay, stop the fumigation. I get it. What gods are we worshiping? We're doing this for the gods of the city. We're doing this for the Agoraion. You're never going to have heard of these gods, guarantee you. They're the gods of the Agora. They're the gods of that public commerce that you and I can have when we don't try to murder each other. And by the way, as Athenians, do you know what kind of police force we have? We have Scythian archers. Scythian archers, brah. Yeah, we do. And we respect the law. And we have giant juries with hundreds of people in them making obnoxious noise. Yes, deciding our fate. It's democracy. Can you believe that? Where's Jesus? Jesus is not here yet. Where's Jehovah? There is no Jehovah at this time. I want you to realize that. And Neil is going to have a clip of a scholar. And while I plays that scholar, and that scholar says what he says, I'm going to be sitting in the background going, ha, ha, he. That's what I'm going to be doing. And maybe, I don't know, something else. And the problem is, this is the kind of thing that we need to do to bust out of the Bible and to reclaim it, right? To reclaim it. A lot of people didn't believe me. I told you we're going to be teaching the Bible, right? And they even have a way for us to do it. You know how lucky those teachers are? Oh, in Oklahoma. If I were a teacher in Oklahoma right now, I'd be like, all right, I got it. Like, I'm there for you. As a matter of fact, I'll teach my class the Bible. I'll teach your class the Bible. I'll teach everybody here the Bible. And we're going to start in the Bible from the time Jesus Christ was arrested in a public park at 4 a.m. with a naked kid. Mark 14, 51 and 52. That's who this is brought to you by. The Bible. That we are so lucky, people. The Bible is so full of dirty, dirty stuff. It's the most dirty. It's the most dirty. I look at people and I think, do you actually know what's in there? Most people don't, because they don't read the Greek. They think the original is this terrible, liturgical, tiny vocabulary language that's absolutely terrible. Right? It's terrible. You can't convey. It's like you took something beautiful somebody produced from who had been in an art school and had worked under the great masters of art. You know, like Michelangelo's student. It's like you took that and you took that work and you gave it to a 7-year-old. And you were like, look, can you describe what you see here? That's what you have in the classical Hebrew, because there's no Hebrew around. There's no Hebrew around. You're going to be shocked tonight by what this new scholar says. He's not new, right? He's new to me. What this scholar says about that. Yes, you're going to be shocked. Okay, he's there in the background too, Neil. Hello. I'm not going to take up a whole lot more time, but we're going to go somewhere substantial here. So I want you to see this. Give me the next one. Now, here's the Browning translation. Yeah, and here and there, heaven high, the torch uplifts, flame medicated with persuasions mild, with foul admixture unbeguiled of holy unguent, from the clotted chrism, brought from the palace, safe in its abysm. That, by the way, Robert Browning made up that word, right? Which is something, yeah, he did. Chewy's looking at me like, are you kidding? No, he had to find something to rhyme chrism, right? Right. So he just made it up. It's nice. Look what happens. This happens to my students too. And we're going to talk about school in a minute, but this happens to my students too. They start coining words, right? Emancipation, bro. Classicists coin those kind of words, right? People who have those classical roots, their minds get possessed by Mother Greek. And I'm not talking modern Greek, because modern Greek is the offspring of the church forcing itself on Mother Greek. And what happens? You get modern Greek, right? So it's not the same. I know that. 1.7 million. Nobody. Modern Greek is probably 60,000, 70,000. There's no way. Oh, God. Don't be surprised. Don't be surprised if in the future cultures and people are studied by their language, because it turns out their behavior comes from it. Isn't that neat? That's the power, right? When they sat around and looked at each other, telling each other, reckoning. And what is the reckoning? Logos. Let's do it. Let's feed. Okay, people, I've got some good stuff here and I want you to enjoy it. I worked hard on this. Hit me. Here's another one. Now, this other translation is by the guy who wrote the grammar, Herbert Smythe. Genius, great guy. Now here, now there, the flames rise high as heaven, yielding to the soft and guileless persuasion of holy ointment, the sacrificial oil itself brought from the inner chambers of the palace. Whatever you can reveal. She had a dream. Clytemnestra had a dream. Can I tell you about it? She dreamed she suckled a snake, and the snake bit her breast, and the blood from the bite mixed with venom contaminated the milk and made the death inducer. Oh God, what? Ladies of the late Bronze Age, what are you people doing? What are you doing? They're entering death. And when Jesus Christ stands up and says to you, you've been Christed in your eyes? I'm going to give you a death inducer, but don't worry, it won't hurt you. When Jesus Christ was doing that, and that's all from the Gospels, when he was doing that, the cult had a very, very deep root in the civilization. What he was doing was just tailoring it to his own profiteering, whatever he was gaining out of having the boys in his service, the apostles. So I'm going to Christ everyone. Are you ready? We've been talking about Christing for a while, and I'm doing this on purpose because people on the outside who are not part of Satanic Congregation, the thing they're most interested in is Christing. And I think that's very important for people to understand what Christing is. And I know you guys have seen a lot of Christing. I got new Christing for you. Right? So don't sit there thinking that I'm going to feed you the same routine and the lights are going to go off at a specific time. And then there's step-diddy-do here and there until we're asleep. That's not what's going to happen. I'm going to give you new and exciting Christing. New and exciting Christing. This is lovely. Okay, let's give me the next one, please. Boom. All right, what do we have here, people? I put together some elements. I want you to think of this word, energeia, and I want you to think of it not as energy. Not as energy. I want you to think about it as what it says in the first paragraph at the end of it. It says the activity, and it says of drugs. The gospel is the power of the drug compound. It is what it is supposed to do. What is the purpose of the drug? The purpose is to bring soteria, salvation. Okay. And part of that is the energeia on the medical side, the energeia. It is that activity of the drug. So I want you to be looking for the activity of the Christ. I want you to be looking at the activity of that drug. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Give me the next one. Give me the next one. Boom. There we go. The next thing I want you to think about is this is leading to ekporneo. Right? What is that? What am I going to do when I ekpornate? I'm going to commit fornication. Oh, God, no. Here they go again. Here they go again. Fornication. Idolatry. Does anybody know what fornication is? Fornication. Why don't you go fornicate? I don't know. Sounds bad, right? What do you mean it's idolatry? For those of you who haven't been here for long, the act of sexual intercourse is a form of religious worship. I'm going to say that again. The act of intercourse is a sacred act, a religious performance whereby you should gain awareness. Complete and total awareness. That's why we call them the orgies. Right? So that's the place that we're looking for. That's the place that we're trying to take the society. That's why we have, again, the priestesses and the Bacchants. That's why we have them purify us. Do you see how the power of the religion in antiquity, in a polytheistic system, is to bring the citizenry to the best, most beautiful place? Right? It's very democratic. Very democratic. You want the best for your society. You want the best for them. You don't want to build a monist box, and whoever isn't in the monist box gets wiped out. And that happens throughout history over and over and over again. Right? And by the way, the devil was a little bit angry with me for failing to mention something. Now, it's not going to get me any big trouble, but perhaps it would be better form for me to acknowledge what he was saying. He said, remind them, remember, that the tyrant must always dismantle and reestablish security. The tyrant will always dismantle and reestablish security. And that's security for the tyrant. That's not security for you and me. That's security for the tyrant. So I was like, all right, devil, you're the one who did it, said it. Let's go for it. So, okay, there you go. Take that for what it is. I don't care. I don't care what you think. Please, at least say something about it in the comments. By the way, your comments are fantastic. The ones that are not fantastic are fantastic too. There's some kind of thrill. I get some kind of weird thrill out of people who are say negative things. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. Fantastic. Let's keep going. Does it have anything to do with the anomos? Where are we going back on our trail? We're going back to the person who is anomos. Are you anomos? I want to show you what the Amazonian queens with the Scythian archers, I want to show you what those women think. You are anomos. Give me the next one. You are anomos. You are atheos, anomos, and adikos. Do you know what you are? You are a monist. You are someone who despises justice. You are someone without law. Right? Now, why did I say monist? Why did I say monist? Because monist is the person who denies the gods. You see, you thought as a monist or as a Christian, as a Jew, a religious Jew or a religious Muslim, as that person worshiping that one God, you thought you were just like, you clipped all the other ones off. No. What you did by rejecting everyone but the one is create a world that was upside down in which you can't have justice anymore. You can't have justice, right? Oh God, it's the Bacchic conundrum, because this is the person we're here to cleanse. We are here to cleanse those who the ancients called atheists, namely the Christians, the monists. Right? We're here to free those people. And the only way to free them is to show them the gods, is to show them. Yeah. Bring back the history. That's why they guard these texts so well. They're powerful. You think, oh, the most powerful substance in the universe is that nuclear stuff we're messing around with. Yeah, that's probably will be our demise. But do you realize the power historically of those classical texts? I'm proud of all the people who want to be in the classes. I'm proud of that. That's gorgeous. It says a great thing. It says a great thing about you, right? Sit back as I'm reading all your applications. Sit back and look at it and say, you know what? This is a good thing. Look what I'm doing. I love it. I commend everyone who sent in an application. I commend them. Give me the next one. We got to hurry. Neil is saying, he said, don't hurry, but I gotta get there. We got to Christ everyone. Watch this. What else do I want you to see? Here, people, step into those shoes. We're looking at law. That is the nomon here. You see it in the blue in the Greek. Pharmakon malakochera. Right? Nomon. What is that? The soft-handed law of drugs. That's how you refer to the physician's art. Yeah, the soft-handed law of drugs. Yeah. Now that soft-handed, I'd argue you could push that to mollifying. Right? The mollifying law of drugs. Right, the pain-killing law of drugs that's got that spirit of Hippocrates wrapped up in it and all that. It's the gorgeous stuff. This is all classical, right? This is not Christian at all. It's not any monism. There's no monism involved here in the formation of classical civilization. That's one thing I need to get across. People are sitting here in a democracy, at least the Americans. Right? That's at least what we believe. We're sitting in a democracy. We have to defend what that democracy is. And that democracy didn't come from Christianity. It didn't. That's what they're going to be teaching in the schools here. Yes, our friends across the pond. It's coming for you next. What do we have to do? We have to bring it back to them. We have to show them democracy was not birthed by Christianity. Democracy came from polytheistic people of all sorts of races, right? All sorts. The thing they had in common was their language. Yeah. And the fact that they were polytheists. Who wouldn't walk through town and see the Temple of Justice and say, that's a good thing, right? When you walk by your city, your town hall, or your city mayor's office, or the police station, you say, what a good thing, right? Now, their police may be different from the Scythian archers, right? Most of the time, you can nick somebody and knock them out. You know what I mean? So they ought to start giving the police some kind of chemical force. That's fantastic. No, don't take my suggestions. What are you doing? Look at me, Chewy. Can you believe anybody would listen to that? Go. What is the next source? People. What's in the world today? A lot of pseudo-christs and a lot of pseudo-prophets, and they're making signs. They're doing signs, creating signs and these monstrosities, and they're all to lead people astray. They're all to lead people astray. This is in the same gospel where Jesus, in the next chapter, gets arrested in a public park with a naked kid. At the time, contemporary with Jesus Christ are pseudo-christs and pseudo-prophets. Why do pseudo-christs and pseudo-prophets go together? Because when you get really, really high, that's when you can hear the angels. That's when you can hear the angels, bro. If you haven't been there, sorry. Sorry for you. Sorry. But if you're a follower of the Christ, you're going to have to go there, or else kingdom of heaven has nothing to do with you. And by the way, all our boys get castrated. What? Oh, God, we're back with the Syrian mother again. I don't think she's going to tolerate this much longer. You people just wait. Syrian mother is going to show up and all that stuff. She's going to be chasing it out. The watchers told me that. They don't just watch, they can also talk. Give me the next one. And what happens now? Yeah, in these days, after the tribulation, people would translate this as the sun is going to become dark and the moon will not give off its reflective light, its phangos, right? That gorgiosity that then permeates. And so remember all of the worshippers of Selene, and that should be capitalized there, right? Selene. And the New Testament's full of gods. Yeah, it's got Hades and death and everything, and they're active participants all the time, right? Because it's written within a polytheistic culture that it then turned around children and destroyed in order to set up tyranny, complete and total tyranny. Yeah, you bet, man. They had power not just over your things and over your body. They had power over your soul. They had power over your soul, baby. If they want that big house of yours, they're going to get it. They're going to get it. And they did. They did. Are you ready for the dark ages again? Who here? No, seriously, people in the chat. Should we see if you can put up chat? Who here is for the return of the dark ages? I can't wait for 1200, right? When we get back to the stench of 1200, I'm going to throw them up there. Throw them up. Does anybody? Hands off me. Right? Whose hands are in the hands of Christ, right? Oh, God. All right, let's go. Go to the source. Go to the source. We'll come back. We'll pick that up. Here we are. And yeah, what else is going to happen? There's going to be stars that fall from Uranus, right? And the the powers in the Uranois, in the heavens, yeah, they will shake. They will shake, right? It's a quantum event that includes drawing down the stars, and Clytemnestra is drawing down the stars. She is that woman. Do you want to know what's under her feet? The moon. Do you want to know what she clothes herself with? The sun. Oh my God. This is gorgeous. Now, right? Okay. No dark ages. It's okay. It's okay. I like knowledge. BW Broom. I like knowledge too. Yes, absolutely, Angela. Absolutely, absolutely. Right? We don't want to go back. No. Right? Oh God, we've got to. It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen, people. Right? Right. It's happening right around you. Get your Bibles, Oklahomans. I can't wait. I can't wait. Yeah, I should go teach in Oklahoma, shouldn't I? If you think I should teach in Oklahoma, write me a comment and say, Oklahoma needs you, Almond. All right, let me get back to how long do you think I'd last in Oklahoma? I'd have to wear a mustache and do something. Anyway, give me the next chart. I'm in a Christ. I want to Christ everyone. I'm in a Christing mood. Ta-da! Look, here's a whole list of Christings. I want you to look at it, people. For those of you who thought Jesus was the Christ and thought Christ was a term that was just about Jesus, here are a whole bunch of Christs that I'm going to throw in your face tonight, right? You're sitting there right in the middle. The stars are all standing around you, Christing your face, right? Right. It's right in your face. You cannot turn away from this. Right? Eyes wide open. Look at all these wonderful Christs. We got Antichristos. We got Artichristos. We got Asun Christos. We got Diachristeon. Woo. Let's see some of these. You think that's it? Do you really think that's all of Christ? No. Here's a whole bunch more. A whole bunch more of Christ. And look, these are coming long before, during, and after Jesus. Yes, long before, during, and after. And look at all the Christ that we've got there. Oh, God. Pseudo-christs. That sounds wrong. Pseudo-christs, right? Sun Christos. Christes. It's a little bit different. Oh, love it. No, that was not related. Pseudo-christos. There's our pseudo-Christ. Now, let's look at some of these. Let's look at some of these Christings. Are you ready? Boom. Yeah, go ahead. Hit me with it. Hit me with it. Oh, God. This is one of them in a giant text. Hey, kiddies. Hey, kiddies. You know it's the end of the world, kiddies. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. This is a message from Jesus. Hey, kiddies. You know it's the end of the world. You know, you heard the Antichrists are coming, right? And there's already many Antichrists in the world, right? And that's how we know it's the end of the world. Did you hear that, Christians? Will you get your monism together here, please? Yeah. They weren't really part of us. They would have stayed with us if they were. And he goes on, but you have a chrism, my Christian brothers and sisters. Do you have a chrism from the Holy One? It's capitalized. I hope you do. The Catholics are saying, yeah. No. The evangelicals are saying, I don't know. Did I ever get Christed? Did I ever have a chrism? If you don't have a chrism, you have no idea what you're doing. You have no idea. And I don't mean that little chrism, that little foot. I don't mean that. No. And all the Catholics are like, oh, right? No. That's not what I'm talking about. Because what does your chrism do? What does the drug do? Kai oida te pantes. You all are in the know. Now, I know some of the texts will turn Pontus into the accusative case, and it'll be, you know everything. This text says you are all, those of you who have the Christing, are all knowing. You know. You remember what it said on the Temple of the Mysteries? It said, know yourself. The god Apollo was there to guide you through it, right? It's part of the whole citizenship thing. Look at this. This is gorgeous. Bring in the goats. Don't you love the goats? Does anybody understand what's going on? I suddenly feel like I need to sing the Star Spangled Banner, but about Aphrodite and Bacchus. Give me the next one. Yep, we need to keep going. Oh, yeah. No. We'll go. Blah blah evangelia. Blah. Let me just Christ people, and then we'll get to Neil. People, how about an Artichristos? That is fresh spread pharmacon. Did anybody order fresh spread pharmacon? Did anybody want those fresh spread drugs? Do you know that's what she is using? Clytemnestra? So wait a minute. You mean Christ is a drug? Yep. Uh-huh. Give me the next Christ. Let's Christ him in the face a little more. Come on. Right in your visual. Don't look away. Don't look away. I want you to see this one coming. Oh, God. Oh, God. Just look at the fourth line down. See the echrion? What can you Christ before I Christ you? Let's watch Deianira, right? This is Hercules' wife. Well, let's watch her. What is she Christing? She's Christing clothing. She's Christing clothing. Yeah, where's she getting her Christing from? The centaur. Now, for those of you who've written to me and said, what is a centaur? I just want you to realize, imagine a male person who is human from the waist up. But, how do I say this? Under the waist, they're a horse. Okay. The centaur is the one who shows her the love potion. The centaur. Hercules knew it, so he shot him. Right? Right? Are these people violent? At least the people with the bows are violent. My goodness. But from those bows are coming the tech, or coming the pharmaceutical tech. It's ultimately driving the religion that is driving Bronze Age society. It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. The tech is gorgeous. And it's, oh God, give me the next one. We must hurry. Give me the next one. Yep. Boom. Who else is, no, just give me the next one. Who else is walking around Christing their robes? There was a woman who had a flow of blood. Yeah. For 12 years. And by the way, she went to doctors. Nobody could take care of her. Next. Nobody could take care of her. And what happened? She just took a hold. She grabbed a hold of the edge of his garment. And what happens? She got cured. She got cured. Now, for those of you who follow the biblical fairy tale, you'll hear, like, I don't know, when she touched him, it'll be like ding or oh, or some kind of sound. There'd be some mist or something. Or there's some kind of, what do they call it? What did that guy call it? When the holy bomb or something, holy grace bomb or something. Something's going to happen. That's what you're thinking about this text, right? But that's not what's going on. That's not what's going on. This is Christ's thing, and you're in the middle of it. Give it to me. Give it to me again. What was go back. She's cured. She's cured. Now, why is this? Why is this? Deianira is Christing the robes of Heracles with a drug that is meant to cause him to be attracted to and excited for her. It is an aphrodisiac. You see, where has Heracles been for the last year? Deianira's fed up with it. She's like, the dude's never around. Where is he? Right? Where is he? And it turns out he comes back and he's got Iole with him. Who is Iole? You remember Cassandra? Meet Iole. They did it again. his shirt gets Christed. It makes complete and total anthropological sense when you're looking at the medicine and the drugs that Jesus would also be Christing. Yeah. Now you know why. Now you know why. You thought it was a fairy tale and just boom, boom, and he's the Christ. And no, I'm sorry. And people are beginning to wake up. They're beginning to see this, and they're beginning to wake up. And I want to talk to Neil about it. Let me Christ a little bit more. Christ on you, right on the glorious face. You've right, because in the idea of the ops, you've got this thing that radiates from your face. Right? Your ops. Sometimes it's translated as your vision. But it has to do not with just your physical sight, but with your understanding of the world. Right? The Cyclops has that one circular vision. Right? It may have two eyes. Don't think he just has one. Right. Okay, here we go. So what does she say? What does the wife of Heracles say? She says, look, the centaur, that Thayer, that beast, this is what he showed me. He showed me this after he got hit by the arrow, because remember, Hercules shot him, right? Because he's messing around with his wife. And what did he show her? He showed her how to bring Achilles back. It was a love potion. She said, I remembered it. This is for all the Mormons out there. I remembered it as if I had written it down on copper plates. And what happened? She says, I did everything faithfully that he told me to do, the centaur. You know what I did? I made that drug. I put it into a place where it couldn't be touched by the light, because he said, well, something bad's going to happen, right? And I hid it. I just took it and I brought it to the very innermost part. I brought it to the very innermost part of my womanly quarters, my womanly apartment, my womanly temple. I brought it there. Yeah. And what happened? I kept it safe until I could take it out and freshly Christ. Look at that bottom line. It's the third word in the bottom line. Artichriston. Do you see how much Christing there is in antiquity? Flash through these really quick. Chewy, we're going to fly. We're going to fly now. She's Christing in her innermost domos, right? That's in her oikos. That's in her house, but it's in her innermost chamber, that sacred chamber, her sacred chamber. Hit me with the next one. What are we going to do? And I want you to notice that these are associated with women. These acts are women. Remember, this is number 3. Number 3 things is Athenians. You oil yourself thoroughly in wrestling and in love. Yeah. If you aren't, it's because you're a barbarian, man. Listen to your stupid language. Here we go. Unanointed. Give me the next one. Diachristeo. One must anoint. You get into a situation with sore anus. See, sore, S-O-R, that's Soranus. 216 is work on gynecology. He's talking about the parts in gynecology that must be anointed. Did you know you're supposed to anoint yourself? Did you know? And I'm talking to the audience of sore anus. I'm talking to the audience of the doctor who is the gynecologist. Anoint yourselves. Diachriston, right? Okay, diachristos. Salves. Look, you can just have ta diachrista, and it's salves, just in general, ointments. What a nice concept. Keep going. Enchristel, one must anoint. Look, what do we get again? Soranus. He's big on this Christing thing. Yes, because it's women's medicine. And when they're talking about Christing and women's medicine, they're talking about Christing the woman's privates. They talk about Christing the men's privates too. But in these contexts, this is women's medicine. You're supposed to be Christed. All of these years. Jesus Christ. Okay, give me the next one. More Christing, and we're going to call on Neil. En Christos, rubbed in. Look at that. You get a little bit more. It's not, you don't just lather this stuff on. You rub it in, and look at where you rub it in. You rub it into the ophthalmos, into the eyes. You thought I was making it up when I said Christing is rubbing stuff into your eyes. No, it is. And do you know why they're doing that? The doctors all talk about it. It's enchantment. It's changing your mental perceptions, right? Altered mental perceptions. That's what they're doing. They're inducing with the drugs, right? And some of them do it with the eyes. Do you know that when Jesus was with that naked boy, and that naked boy has the bandage on his private part, and Jesus ends up with that goo on his face, in his eyes, right? It doesn't help to swallow it. The goo goes in the eyes, says the Christ. I know. Where's my... I don't think I can take much more Christing. This is too much Christing. Does everybody agree? I'm getting okay. Give me a little more Christing. Just a little. People want, if you're out there and you want more Christing, give it to me. This is the supply of oil for the Christing. Elio Christia. Good. So, there's like technical terms that are Christ terms. That's okay. Give it. And then we have the epichristos. That's what's smeared on. Look at the pharmaca that are smeared on. Right? Okay, good. Next one. How about the philochristos? Now look, people, here's a late word. It's giving a 6th century Anno Domini, right? From Palestine. And what is it? It's a philochrist. Loving Christ. So you can watch the development of the word, so that next time you say Christ, you'll know what it means. Okay, give me the next one. I hope we're past the ones that are making me sick in the tummy. Kata Christeon, one must anoint. Just look, people, another etius at the end of it. That's another medical, again, talking about parts of the body that you need to anoint. For those of you who didn't believe me a year ago when I talked about the apocalypse, right, and the trochiskoi, right? Notice that it says here the katachristos is for use as ointments, or trochiskoi. Remember, those are the things that we always translate as seals. Ezekiel has them, and those round circle things that they always paint. Those Christians that paint that stuff. By the way, I had a word. I was supposed to tell you this. Oh, and the word drug was there too. Right there with the seals that you're talking about. Okay. I was supposed to tell you. Oh shoot! What did the devil tell me to tell him? Oh, it'll come back to me. Let me keep thinking. Go. Give me the next one. Leukochristos, right? Whitewashed, white Christed. I wonder what it means to get white Christed. Give me the next one. Muro. Oh, this is one of my favorite. Right, this is one of my favorites. Anointed with the unguent. Now that's a really tame way of saying the sex drugs. Right? The sex oil. Put on your sex oil. Right? Why are they doing this? Doesn't everybody, when it's so common that they bring it to the stage. Aristophanes brings it to the stage. And the oiling up is the getting ready. When it says that Polystra was getting ready to wrestle, and she told him, get yourself ready. What was she talking about? She was talking about the mirror-christing. Yeah, you've got to mirror Christ yourself. Why? Because you're going to be wrestling. If you're not going to be wrestling, something's wrong. Are you married to a pastor? What's going on here? Somebody call this person. Get over here. Ladies, better choices. Let's go. Neo katachristos, just smeared, right? Diascordes, another doctor. We're going to fly Pong Christos, thoroughly anointed, right? You got every crack and crevice, didn't you? a little passage for you of Hercules' wife. And what she's saying, she says, I really hope he enjoys his poison t-shirt, right? His pan-Christing. He's been pan-Christed. And what does she want it to cause in him? Look at the first line. She wants him to be panhimeros. Panhimeros. She wants him to be all excited. She wants him to be all excited. It's one of those drugs. You're going to put it on. It's going to cause you to be all excited. What did the woman do who took a hold of his garment? Yeah, she Christed herself. Yeah, wonderful. Give me the next one. Give me the next one. We have ointments here, parachrista. What else we got? More Christings. And then here, look, you've got to Christ yourself. You've got to Christ yourself. Do you remember what happens when you Christ yourself? Give it to me. It'll come back. Ointment, 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 ointment. Good. Give me more, more and more. Just keep going. Just keep going. One's got to anoint, right? Must be applied. What are we going to apply as ointment? Something called liposmata. What the heck is that? Give it to me. What is liposmata? Look at this. A fattening substance. What? Is it butter? What are they putting on themselves? It's a salve. Look at number 3. A salve. I mean, you could Christ. Don't be prudish. You could Christ with some kind of lard or something like that, or butter. You could Christ with that. Look at number 4, liposma ophthalmon. Talking about a tear. Talking about a tear. That little ointment in your eye. Isn't that gorgeous? Sometimes you gotta Christ people, right? Next time you Christ, think about it. Think about what you're doing. It's a medical practice. Christ yourself. Give me the next one. Smear, right? It's getting old. It's getting old. We're just smearing stuff all over the place. We've got bottles of this stuff laying around, right? This is actual reality, people. This is not literature. This is reality. We've got some dude who's a whitewasher. Good for him, right? Here's the word for Christian. Oh, you mean the word for Christian is the word for one who is Christed? Yes, that's why it says in the Revelation, and remember, every single word of the apocalypse is true, and anybody who messes with it, that's what the devil told me to say. I remember. That's what the devil told me to say. The devil told me to say, look out, send a message. That guy who wrote the series Left Behind, right, and the people that were involved with it, you're not in a good position. It turns out it was what you were writing about was fake. It was fairy tale. And it was a false construction of a tablet, a book, a scroll, a song that is cursed. It's cursed. And so were you. And on top of it, devil said, you tell him, you made money. You made money. Everybody who bought into Left Behind. Yeah. It's amazing. Nobody reads the Bible, though, people. I don't know why. No, nobody reads the Bible anymore. Okay, we're going to read the Bible. Watch this. Here's a Christian, Christianos. Give me the next one. Here's Peter. He says, look, if you get persecuted because you're a Christianos, don't be ashamed. Don't be ashamed. Let it be to the glory, right? To the glory and the name, right? Because that to us is everything. What are we? We are the Christed. You have none of these people walking around today. Christians are not the Christed. They are not. They have not taken the thanasimon that Jesus said you have to take. Realize your life is a figment of an imagination that came from the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd centuries. A monism that destroyed your own understanding of yourself. Okay, let's keep going. Let's keep going. More of that Christing. I think we're just going to jump. I think here's the pseudo-Christ. Yeah, here's a couple more verses, and I think we're going to finish up with that. This is to anoint yourself all over. Now, if you anoint yourself all over, good for you. Good for you. I think that's how it should be done too. I'm with these. I'm going to hang with these people. The Amphichrists. Look at how many new types of people we can have. Are you an Amphichriст? Oh yeah, you know it. You know it. Give me the next one. What is that one? I want to see what that coin is. Oh yeah. No, there's lots of pseudo-christs. You know, prophets, and they're all doing this in the sun, right? And the moon. Selene is there, right, beneath the feet. Did you get your anointing on? Is that why we're hearing what we're hearing? Yes, it is. And finally, here's your imbrication, and here is your anointing or besmearing, right? Okay, I just wanted you to see it's a lot of Christing. It's a lot of Christing. So I've given you the context of what people did when they actually Christed. And I hope that you're beginning to see where the rite is coming from as we look into the Bronze Age, to the drugs that they were first using, or at least it's the first record. I'm sure, I don't know how old it is, but it's when we begin to see literary depictions, right? It's when we begin to see, it's at this time, the late Bronze Age, they're coming up with this drug tech, or at least they're employing it. And guess what, ladies? You're right in the middle of it. You're right in the middle of it. And it turns out our society is just a weak reflection of what that original Amazonian democratic oracle creating Bronze Age world where women could castrate captives, poison them, and turn them into sex slaves. When you say the good old days, that's what you're talking about. Yeah. To the Greeks, these were the good old days. You had to be there. The tech was something. Okay, I'm going to call in Neil now, and I'm going to see. Look, you had to wait way longer. This is terrible, but you told me not to worry. People, I want us to welcome back Hercules, who has come back to us from his adventures. Yeah, and he's gotten everything out of his system, and now he's come back, and he's ready to hit you with some sources. Thank you for coming tonight. I don't want to set up your clip, Neil. I want you to set it up, but I want people. I'm going to be sitting in the background saying, I told you so. I told you so. Okay. I'm going to let you. Yep, you're good. You're good. I'm going to give it over to you.
I'm going to play that clip last. So that way you can come back and react to it. We can talk about it.
Okay, turn your volume up a little bit. Chewy says, arg, turn it up.
How's that? Better?
Yeah, better? A little bit better.
Okay,
yeah.
Cool.
There we go. There we go.
Let's go with the first slide that I have. It's the white text, not the video. Yeah. So he was talking about gods in the Bible, and so I'm sure somebody in the crowd wants to see what he means by that. So I pulled it up, and this is the clear example of, and you find this type of rhetoric and this type of style in the Sibylline oracles, which were around in the first century BC, first century AD, second century, and so on. And by the way, Sibylline oracles, they're written sort of in the, well, obviously they're written in a hexameter prose, like they're written in a certain style of Greek, but like Revelation, which isn't written in that same style of Greek, but Revelation is like Sibylline oracles in the sense that they're both very prophetic, and they used gods as concepts of things in the world. They're both very like ideas based, I guess that's the way to put it. But I want to throw something at you. I want to show you what he means by that. And so at the end of Revelation, verse 11, chapter 20, verse 11, he says, Kai Aidon thronon megan lucan. He saw a white throne, a great white throne, and on it sitting, whose from the face fled the gay Kai Uranos. And so you got Gaia and Aranos in the nominative singular, both of them. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean, because it's in the nominative singular, it doesn't mean it's a person necessarily or a god necessarily. It can be heaven and earth. But watch what's going on in this chapter. That's what matters to me. So as it continues, and heaven and earth were and place was not found for them. And I saw the dead and great and small standing before the throne, and the biblia were opened, and another biblia was opened, which the one Zoe, which was the one of Zoe. Okay, the book of Zoe, and were judged the dead, the necroi, out of the things that were written, and in these biblios, according to the deeds of them, and he gave up thalassa. Now, thalassa can just mean sea, but in the Orphic hymns, I have my Orphic hymns right there. There's a whole dedication, there's a whole sacrifice, there's a whole ritual where you can actually light certain incense and hymn and honor Thalassa. Thalassa is a god. So let's continue. I think the evidence gets better as we go. It says tous necrus tous and autukai thanatos kai o Hades gave up. So what did I just say there? Thanatos and Hades are there. Not only is Thalassa there giving up his dead, but Thanatos and Hades are giving up their dead, and who were in them, and they were judged each according to their works. And Thanatos and Hades, Thanatos, Kaio, Hades, were cast into the lake of Puros, of fire. And Thanatos, this is the second death. All right. Thanatos and Hades are actually characters in Orphic mythology, or Orphic, the greater Orphic textual corpus, if you want to call it that. And they do have their own dead. Hades has his own dead that he has control over. He has souls that he has power over. So does Thanatos, and so does Kronos, who rules Elysium. So does Persephone. And there's also a lake of fire down there. There's no lake of the oldest lake of fire we find is in Greek mythology. You don't find lake of fire in any Old Testament or Hebrew mythology. That's a totally Greek mythology thing that you're finding in this chapter. So I think Revelation is playing around with gods, and they're being judged and put. By the way, these are great gods, not just little gods. These aren't just daemons. These are great gods who have Orphic hymns dedicated to them. All of them. Thanatos, Thalassa, Gaia, Uranos, Hades, all of those gods that were mentioned in this chapter, all of them have specific hymns dedicated to them. They'll have specific honors, specific ways to sacrifice, specific incenses burned to them. So that's a really good point here. I think there's some polytheism happening in the book of Revelation. To me, there's no doubt. So I wanted to start off with that, because the reason why I want to start off with that is because this is what we find in the mysteries. And a lot of people will try to say, well, the mysteries is some later thing that happens basically at the same time as Christianity. You get the Hermetic mysteries, and what else comes around at that time? Mithraic mysteries, which is true. Those do come later. I think after Ptolemy sacks Cilicia, all those Mithraic pirates, those Leistoi, they all end up transferring their cults over to the Romans, and that's how you get the cult of Mithras. That's according to Plutarch, not me. So we have mysteries. They go way back before that. That's a lie. I just made that. I just wanted to tell you that. People who say the mysteries is a later phenomenon of the post-Augustan era, bullshit. Samothracian mysteries, Orphic mysteries, Bacchic mysteries, Eleusinian mysteries, all of those basically go back to at least early Iron Age, if not Eleusinian and Samothracian, go back to the Bronze Age. The mystery religions are as old as writing is. We don't even know how old Eleusinian mysteries are. Who knows? And Samothracian mysteries are even older than the Eleusinian mysteries. Even the Eleusinians admitted that. So Samothracian mysteries, who knows? And if you actually, the little bit we do know about the Samothracian mysteries, they have pre-Greek, archaic, what they call Pelasgian gods. The names of their gods that go back before Greek. That's how old it is. That's what the sources say. So I wanted to share. I'm going to share. Let me see. Let me stop this screen. I got a file that I want to share. Let me see. Where did I do this file? Just give me a second. I got some good stuff to add to what Amon was saying. So speaking of the mysteries, you got the word muo. And if you look at Perseus Tufts and Alice, you get close, be shut of the eyes. Remember what Amon was saying? He was talking about having your eyes be open by being Christed. But yeah, that's what the word means. It literally just means to close. So mueo means I initiate or I disclose, right? Mustes is a word that's used that just means initiate. So from that word muo, I shut, you get these other words having to do with religion, having to do with being initiated. So Paul, talking about Christ crucified as the mystery or the secret, is language that would have caught the ear of the God-fearing Greek in the time period and would have said, mysteries. Ooh, I love mysteries. What do you got for me? I'll be initiated. Give me a baptism. Give me a Christ. Give me some Eucharist. In fact, we have some sources on that. So let's talk about that. So this, by the way, I wrote Marcus Magus down here because I have him in my notes, and I was trying to write Dioscorides. That's not Marcus Magus. This is Dioscorides. I don't know why I wrote that, but Dioscorides did die in 90 AD. So that is true. So I got that part right. Dioscorides is going to be the subject of the next couple minutes. He died in 90 AD. He's a contemporary running around with Paul. Maybe he was even Paul's plug. Who knows? Maybe Paul was buying his shit off this guy. But anyways, the verse that I wanted to address here is Porphyra Kaisa, which I'm going to cite Aldboy here. I got to cite Aldboy. This is a screenshot from one of Aldboy's videos where he translates this as the burning purple. Now I wanted to translate it myself too, and I think it's the let's see, what has he got? He's got the aorist active. I think it's the aorist passive, but I could be wrong. I'm just saying. I want to see what people think about that. I'm throwing that out there. We can go back to that. We can circle back to that. I'm not trying to start nothing, but it wouldn't even make a difference. It will make a slight difference. It would be the burnt purple, the purple that's been burnt. Whereas in the aorist active, it's the burning purple. Now, the reason why I bring that up is because Dioscorides talks about this burnt purple, where he says it has these different uses, and you can use it to clean wounds, you could use it to clean scars, you can use it for checking overgrown flesh, whatever that means, and it's a detersive of the teeth. It cleans your teeth out, which is odd because you see a lot of teeth cleaners these days that are actually purple. I don't know if you guys know that. Go to your local store, cosmetic store, and go to the teeth cleaning stuff. You'll see there's like purple teeth cleaners out there. And I wonder if they rediscovered Dioscorides' methods of cleaning teeth. Just saying, you never know. But yeah. So, okay, that's that. That's the Dan clip that I have saved for when I need it. So I'm going to I have one more thing I got to show. Since we're on the topic of burning purple or the burnt purple, whichever it is. I want to share my last screen before I get to that video. And that is this. So this is a story we get. This is a story we get from Hippolytus at the end of the 2nd century. I think. Early 3rd, maybe. But anyways, he's talking about a guy named Marcus who lived in the 2nd century. Now, before I read this story, I want you to realize how big of a deal this guy is. He gets his own entire multiple chapters dedicated just to him. Where most heretics get like a paragraph or a page or a sentence. Marcus gets multiple pages and he gets multiple books dedicated just to himself. Only Marcus Valentinus, by the way, Marcus was the successor of Valentinus. We're going to get into that. The Valentinians were a huge, I think they were the mystery, the earliest, I think they represent the earliest strata of Christianity. But we'll get into that. We'll get into that too. But anyways, the Nicene preacher, who we don't know his real name, Valentinus and Marcus, they get the most action in these texts. They get the most, they're the most serious by far. And it's because of how much power they had. It turns out, this is not just me like spewing nonsense. Anybody, this is like well-known, agreed, this is like consensus stuff for them about the Marcosians, who are an offshoot of the Valentinians, are the largest growing faction of Christianity in France in the 2nd and 3rd and 4th century, all the way into they were there for a while, apparently. And they got their name from this guy. So European Christianity comes from this. What you're about to hear. All right, let's read this story. But there was another among them of these heretics, Marcus by name, who boasts himself as having improved upon his master. He is a perfect adept in magical impostures, and by this means, drawing a great number of men and not a few women, he has induced them to join themselves to him as to one who is possessed of the greatest gnosis and perfection. That's what the word actually is. And who has received the highest power from the invisible and ineffable regions above. Thus it appears as if he really were the precursor of Antichrist. For joining the buffooneries of Anaxilos, of the craftiness of the Magi, that's why he gets his nickname from, Marcus Magus, as they are called, he is regarded by his senseless and crack-brained followers working miracles as by these means. What miracles? Pretending to consecrate cups mixed with wine, the Eucharist, obviously, and protracting to great length the word of invocation. He contrives to give them a purple and reddish color. Remember, the purple, we talked about this all the time. Sometimes it's a dark red crimson. It doesn't have to be purple. Sometimes it can be a little on the reddish side. So here we got a good candidate for this right here. Purple and reddish color. So what does he say here? By the way, I love this translation. The one that I was going to use translates this to grace. This person kept the word charis. They actually transliterate it. I love it because that makes you hear the Greek. It makes you hear the original context. So I'm going to read it. So that charis, who is one of those, and the other one says, so that the grace, superior to all things, like he just totally changes the translation. But this is what it really says. So that charis, who is one of those that are superior to all things, should be thought to drop her own blood into that cup through means of his invocation, and that thus those who are present should be led to rejoice to taste that cup, in order that by so doing, charis, who is set forth by this magi, may also flow into them. And again, handing mixed cups to the women, he bids them consecrate these in his presence. When this has been done, he himself produces another cup of much larger size than that which the deluded women have consecrated, and pouring from the smaller consecrated by the women into that which has been brought forth. So he's basically explaining how he drugs them and stuff, whatever he does. This is like, he has a sleight of hand going on. He's got a small cup and a big cup. The drugs are in the small cup, and when they're not looking, he dips it. He's drugging these girls. This is wild. By the way, I'm going to stop here just to give you some context. His student that he succeeded, they consider, and it's in this text somewhere where he says that this is the successor of Valentinus. I think it's in the chapter before this where he says that. He's a student of Valentinus, who was the second highest bishop in Rome in the 150s of the Common Era. 140s, actually. I'm sorry, 140s. So Valentinus was had the second highest amount of votes to become the bishop of Rome. And if that would have happened, he would be on your list. I got my Catholic Bible right here. If you open up your Catholic Bible, it's got the list of succession of popes. He's almost on this list. Now, I know some scholars will say, but they weren't popes in the beginning. The Bishop of Rome didn't have that much power. I don't care. I'm looking at this list, and I see Hyginus, and I see Telesphorus, and I see Pius from 140 to 155. Pius is the guy, I think it was either Hyginus or I think it was Hyginus. 136 to 140. So it was even earlier than I thought. This is even earlier than I thought. This is in the 130s. Hyginus is on the list. Hyginus is the guy that beat Valentinus out for votes by a couple of votes. I'm telling you, it was only a couple of votes. That's what the sources say. Now, just let that sink in. The successor to that guy, whose church almost became the Church of Rome, very close, or at least he would have been steering the ship a little bit more in his own direction. Who knows? We don't know. We don't know what happened. Maybe nothing happened. Who knows? I'm just saying that's what would have happened. So he says this. This is that guy. And by the way, Marcosians are known to be the biggest church in France in the 2nd and 3rd century after this guy. So it says, pouring from the smaller one, consecrated by the women into that which has been brought forward by himself, he at the same time pronounces these words, may that Charis, who is before all things, and who transcends all knowledge and speech, fill your inner man and multiply in you her own knowledge by sowing the grain of mustard seed in you as in good soil. Repeating certain other like words and thus goading on the wretched woman to madness, he then appears a worker of wonders. So they're tripping balls off this stuff, and they're probably seeing visions of Christ and Mary or whatever, and he's probably saying, see, it's my Eucharist. Told you. And that's how he does it. So they basically talk about it. And then he says, it appears probable enough that this man possesses a demon, as his familiar spirit by means of whom he seems able to prophesy. So he's pulling off. This guy's admitting that whatever this guy's doing, he's pulling off prophecy and it's working. And also enables as many as he counts worthy to be partakers of his charis themselves to prophecy. He devotes himself especially to women and those such who are well bred and elegantly attired and have great wealth, whom he frequently seeks to draw after him by addressing them in such seductive words as these: I am eager to make you a partaker of my grace, charis, since the Father of all does continually behold your angel before his face. Now, the place of your angel is among us. These are his words. This is a quote from him. Let me start that over. This is a quote from Marcus. I am eager to make you partake of my charis, since the Father of all does continually behold your angel before his face. Whatever that means. Now, the place of your angel is among us. It behooves us to become one. Receive first from me, and by the gift of charis, adorn yourself as a bride who is expecting her bridegroom, that you may be what I am and what you are. Establish the germ of light in your nuptial chamber. Receive from me a spouse and become receptive of him. While you are received by him, behold, charis has descended upon you. Open your mouth in prophecy. And the woman replying, I have never at any time prophesied, nor do I know how to prophesy. Then, engaging for the second time in certain invocations as to astound his deluded victim, he says to her, open your mouth, speak whatsoever occurs to you, and you shall prophesy. Since then, vainly puffed up and elated by these words, and greatly excited in soul by the expectation that is herself who is to prophecy, her heart beating violently. By the way, shout out to Hippolytus for writing this. This is good shit. Her heart beating violently from emotion reaches though requisite pitch of audacity, and idly as well as impudently utters some nonsense as it happens to occur to her, such as might be expected from one heated from an empty spirit. Referring to this, one superior to me has observed that the soul is both audacious and impudent when heated with empty air. Henceforth, she reckons herself a prophetess. I wonder what Alma thinks about that heated part. Henceforth, she reckons herself as a prophetess and expresses her thanks to Marcus for having imparted to her of his own charis. She then makes the effort to reward him, not only by the gift of her possessions, in which he has collected a large, very fortune. By the way, there's probably some truth to this, because like I said, he goes on to start the biggest church in all of France. He basically brings Christianity to the Gauls. Basically, he's like known for that. Then it says, but already some of the most faithful women, possessed of the fear of God and not being deceived, abhorring and excreting him, have withdrawn from such vile company of revelers. This they have done as being well aware that the gift of prophecy. Whoops. What did I just do? Oh, here we go. Okay, so it is not conferred on men by Marcus the magician, Marcus the magus, but that only those to whom God sends his grace from above possesses divinely inspired. So he's talking shit, you know. Last thing I wanted to show on this part is right here. He says, Marcus compounds filters and love potions. This guy loves drugs and purple shit, right? And it says, in order to insult the persons of some of these women, if not all of them, those of them who have returned to the church of God, a thing frequently occurs, have acknowledged, confessing too, that they have been defiled by him. Wow. And that they were filled with a burning passion towards him. A sad example of this occurred in the case of a certain Asiatic, one of our deacons, who had received him. Why are they all getting tricked by him if he's so evil? How are they all going back to him all the time? Well, something's going on here. Who had received him into his house. His wife, a woman of remarkable beauty, fell a victim both in mind and beauty to this magician, and for a long time traveled about with him. At last, with no small difficulty, the brethren had converted her. She spent her whole time in exercise of public confession, blah, 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 blah. But anyways, he's a magus. He makes a lot of drugs. He says, and they assert that they themselves know more than all others, and that they alone have imbibed the greatness of the gnosis of the knowledge of what is unspeakable, the mysteries. So what I think when I'm reading something like this shows me, even though Hippolytus, who's writing this 50 years later, he's writing this 50 years later. Hippolytus is not a primary source he's a primary source that we're reading him, but he's not a primary witness to these events. He's writing about something that happened 50 years before him. So when I read this, and I think Hippolytus is looking back at an older time of Christianity happening in the 130s. 130s of the Common Era. 130s and 140s. And this is a time where Christianity is looking way different. And that's what this tells me. This tells me that the Christians who were in charge and running the churches were doing way different shit. They were doing, and it was way more mystery-like. A lot more Eucharist and baptisms. And as you can see here, this guy's going his own extra route and adding purple drugs to the Eucharist. I'm not sure how many other churches were doing that. I mean, I would guess maybe there's more than one, right? Just saying. What do you think about that?
Yeah, you found him, right? Everybody put your hands up. The cops are all outside, right? You found him. You got him surrounded. Good FBI job. Yeah, hit us with your clip too.
Real quick. There's a joke about the mysteries. So one of this is actually one of Diogenes' students. I had this text right here from Diogenes, a cynic. And one of his students is named Theodoros. There's a story about this guy, Theodoros. And one day Theodoros was sitting beside a hierophant, Eurycledes. And he says, "Tell me, Eurycledes, who are those who violate the mysteries?" And when the hierophant replied, "Those who reveal them to the uninitiated." Theodorus then said, "You guys, this is you know he's learned from Diogenes how to be slick." He says, "Then you yourself are violating them when you expound them to the uninitiated, because you have to reveal the mysteries to the uninitiate in order to initiate them." And this is what it says after that. "He would hardly have escaped from being hauled in front of the court of Areopagos if Demetrius of Philarion had not come to his rescue." There's Demetrius popping up in our history books again. He's everywhere.
Bravo, bravo. Hit the clip. Show these people. Set it up. Look what you found. This is an expose that Neil's got going on. I'm serious. This is like huge Renaissance business. Show him.
Does your clip on the bottom play, or do I have to play my own? Because I don't know if I downloaded it yet. My own?
Most scholars would say the Moses tradition probably started being written down in the 700s. maybe the late 800s BCE.
They are probably writing the Moses stories down sometime in the 700s BC. What would you say to that?
So, okay, so when I hear a claim of that sort of, or any claim about when, let's say, a biblical text was written, the first question that I'll ask is, how do you know that? And I expect an answer that's compelling. The answer can't be, well, most scholars think that, whatever. I will continue and I will ask, well, how do these scholars know that? Right. In good historical work, you need to show evidence for any claim that you make. Right? I'm simply trying to put on the table what it is that we know and what it is that we don't know. And I look backwards in time, start with the first century of the Common Era and go backwards to the first century before the Common Era, to the second century before the Common Era, to the third century before the Common Era. Prior to this time, the trail of evidence ends. We no longer find archaeological evidence or textual evidence which point to widespread observance of the Torah, or in fact, any kind of observance of the Torah in actuality. The fact that we don't have any references to any of the biblical texts, stories, laws.
Did it pause? I didn't pause it. I can continue it though. I got the clip right here. So
Yeah,
wait,
go ahead. It's probably on our end.
All right, because the last part's pretty good. All right, ready? Is it playing?
Down in the 700s.
Or textual evidence which point to widespread observance of the Torah, or in fact, any kind of observance of the Torah in actuality. The fact that we don't have any references to any of the biblical texts, stories, laws, the fact that we have practices which go against, which contravene Torah law. For example, we find images of Athena. Now, these are copies of Greek coins. We find them being minted in Judea with the term, the name Yehud, Yud-Hey Daled, the name of the Judean province. I find in my discussions with scholars, oftentimes people they don't get what I'm doing, right? To me, it seems so obvious, but it's not clear to them that this is a question that we can look into and investigate and think about, and what are ordinary people doing? To me, it's the simplest question of all. The earliest evidence that we have for the Torah being observed is from middle of the second century before the Common Era.
Wow. He goes farther than Gad Barnea goes. Now, the reason why this interview is a little bit different and it has better information, I think, because it's worse than we thought. It's worse than I thought. Because here, and we didn't even talk about this, but it's in his book. He writes this in his book. No circumcision, no evidence of circumcision until the 150s AD BC. So before, it's like we're you and I are probably thinking, oh, probably around 300 when they make the Septuagint, everyone's going to start following it. No one gave a shit. No one's following it. It's just there. It's just there for elite circles to read about. Kind of like how people have Plato's laws, but they're not following Plato's laws. They're just reading it. It's like that. It's like a philosophical treatise text. It's one of those, like, because there's a lot of these laws laying around in this time period. It's not just the Torah. It's not just Plato. Other people are writing nomos. Nomoi is a popular thing to write. Now, he says this: no circumcision, no synagogues. They're eating pork. They're eating shellfish. They're sacrificing to other gods. They're making images of Greek and pagan and Egyptian gods all over the place. No mention, like, so it's like this place that we call Israel is just another Mediterranean place, just like every other part of the Mediterranean world, until not the 300s, until the Hasmonean period, until the 150s BC. That's when they start to shift and change their culture into a worshiping one God, following the Torah. That's when they start. It's even worse than we thought. Middle of the 2nd century BC is what he says. Before that,
Now-
they're all polytheistic pagans like everyone else. They're just Mediterranean people like everyone else.
Why is that worse? I kind of think that's better. If it's accurate, I kind of think it's better. You know what I mean?
No, it's better. It's better for you and me, and for everybody, because it frees people from this thing of like, oh, this part of the world is different, and there's this, we have to like treat this part of the world as like holy and sacred. It's like, no, it's just another Mediterranean land like everyone else. So when I say worse, I mean it's worse for like the fundamentalist types who are like, oh, Moses, wrote the Torah in 1300 BCE, and King David and King Solomon and King Josiah and his reforms, all happened. No, it didn't happen. What reforms are you making if nobody's even doing anything?
Right.
There's no reforms to be had.
Right.
It doesn't make any sense. The idea of king. By the way, there's not one mention of Josiah anywhere outside of the Bible.
That stuff's made up, right?
There's no letter to Pharaoh to King Josiah. This doesn't exist. He might have existed, but I'm just saying.
Can I ask, was it refreshing to get somebody whose standard was evidence, right? We're not the theology and all that stuff. None of that stuff matters, right? The dude is digging in the dirt. By the way, somebody just sent me an article that they found a gold ring in Haifa, and it had the imprint of Minerva on it, right? And they wanted to know what I thought. I think I wrote back and said, "Are you surprised?" Right? It's well predating. There was no Moses at the time that ring was there. There was no Moses, right? It's a later creation.
Yeah.
Some
Bible believers will be shocked to know that Moses. What do you mean Moses isn't around in 450 BCE? That's way late in the game, in their opinion. But he's not around yet in 450 BCE. And they have Athena on their coin. They don't have Moses on their coin like we have Abraham Lincoln on our coins. They didn't have Moses and Abraham on their money. They have Athena and Zeus on their money. Zeus holding the fucking eagle.
And they worship the zodiac of Ion. Right, they do. It's in the synagogues. They're sitting there, right? Right. By the way, synagogue is a Greek word. You got to think about that for a minute. You know what I mean?
It means together.
It's amazing.
Gathering.
Neil, have you, as you're doing all this research and as you're pulling down all of the views of the late Bronze Age and then down Iron and then finally the classical Greece, are you getting some kind of picture of movements of people in this, basically a sea-based world, right? And you got movements of people throughout this area, and some of those people are going through the, what you call Judea, right, or Palestine. People are going through them. Those people have Greek. They do have. There's Greek blood all over the place. There's
even the
Greek
Punics.
Genetics all over. Yeah,
even
prolific.
Those Phoenician Punics are Mediterranean to the core.
Yeah,
they have a different language. They're Semitic people, of course. They're using the same alphabet, but they have their own way of. They have their own I guess you could say it's like a font if you think about it, because it's all the same alphabet. It's the alpha beta, but they have their own pantheon of equivalents of Kronos, of Zeus, who they call Baal Ammon. That's who they call him. That's their Zeus, and they have all their Eshmun, who they say is, and we found a bilingual text. It's half Punic and half Greek or Latin. It's Latin, actually. Is it Latin? I think it is. It's one of those two, but one of them has Adonis and the other one has Eshmun. And it's so that you can see how they're equating those gods together. Anyways, but it's a bilingual. It's like the But I wanted to mention something about the Dan in the beginning of that clip. They always say this. We scholars think that Moses was being written down around the 700s. Why? This is what I want to know. Why 700s? Why not 900s? Why not 1,000? Because it's the same thing to me. You're just guessing. You're just making shit up with no evidence and just going, it's possible that Moses just slipped through the cracks and that no one figured out who he was until the Hellenistic period. And that there's only a small group of elitist people in Jerusalem who wrote about Moses. Why are they writing about Moses and not telling anybody? What the hell is the point of that? It's a very weird. So me and Derek were talking about this. We're calling it the Torah of the Gaps argument. You ever heard of the God of the Gaps argument?
No.
So people who try to argue about like God being in control of everything will say like, oh, they used to think rain was sent by the gods. Now they know rain is caused by condensation or whatever. And so like God kind of moves back into the areas that we don't know where he is, right? So now it's just like he's outside of space and time. Monism, right? They do the same thing for the Torah. Wherever if we look for the Torah, we'll look for evidence of the Torah or stories about Moses or just anybody writing about Moses or Abraham or anything, just mentioning Abraham or Noah. You can't find it. It's just not there. So it becomes this argument of the Torah of the gaps where we can't find them. The average Joe doesn't know who Moses is. The farmer doesn't know who Moses is. The soldiers don't know who Moses is. So it must just be some really small priestly class sitting up in Jerusalem by themselves, writing legends for nobody but themselves. It sounds crazy.
It does. And that was the only beef I had with your guest. Was that he said, you got to realize, and as soon as you hear him generalizing, you know, and they're going to mess up. By the way, the best scholars can fall into this trap.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying this dude is an excellent scholar. He sounded like it to me.
Yeah.
And I was really impressed with how he handled evidence. So, but when he's generalized, and it's easy to step in this trap, when he generalized and was talking about, well, you know, in antiquity, books were just for the elite, right? And you had to have a lot of money and a lot of hoo-ha and a lot of education. And when he was saying that, I thought, what do you think the gymnasia were? They were teaching people Homer. You sent
the theater.
You sent your kids to school to learn Homer's grammar.
But
what do you mean? There were 50,000 scrolls in the Alexandrian library. Who do you think is reading all those scrolls? Right. You think it's just a few elite people? That's an old argument that I've heard in classics for the longest time.
But and here's the thing, though.
And it doesn't stand up.
I totally am fine with the idea that only a very select can read and write. That even if that's the case, let's grant that. Fine. It doesn't matter because they can still tell the stories to people. And they're still gonna. So you still have the theater. You still have Homer being played out as a song for people who can't read and write to listen to. So even if that's true, that only a small certain people can read and write, it doesn't mean they're not going to be able to tell people's stories. People want to know stories. People are sitting around at campfires every single night. They don't do anything else. So if there's a legend somewhere about some hero, they're going to want to know about it. There's no way that's not going to get out there. It just doesn't make sense at all that people would secretly have their own little secret cliques of legend writing. Yeah, that just doesn't make any sense.
No. And let's remember, it's not all the Greeks, because the Spartans were not only was their Greek bad, but they tried to outlaw stuff like theatrical performances and reading and stuff like that. The Spartans were far more like modern evangelicals than the evangelicals realized. And if you think about how their culture was and how they viewed people in the world, what their big view was, you want to say worldview. And you want to think about why things mean that they do, because the Spartans are the ones who are into that. Right.
You know what's funny about that is the Spartans. You're gonna laugh. Josephus has a letter, a supposed letter from the king of the Spartans writing to the king or the high priest or somebody to the Jews. I don't know who. I can't remember who, but it's preserved in Josephus. And the king of the Spartans tells the Jews, "We're all sons of Abraham together." I figured you'd laugh at that for what you just said.
Yeah, that's good. I like that.
Yeah.
And it fits, it fits. But we Athenians, we're not going to do that. We've got things like democracy, and that's a big deal to us. I thought it was a fantastic interview. I thought you did a fantastic job. How was there anything from it that you just wanted to say, hey, it's also important that he was able to show me this, because obviously he moved your timeline down, right? You lost like a century off of Jewish history, right? It's like, well, it didn't go back that far, right? It just wasn't around.
That's what you know what it makes me realize, because if this is true, that people are like, let's put this timeline together. Judaism did not exist before 300 BC. Just did not exist. There is no such thing as Judaism before that. Everyone's polytheistic. You get these texts put together at this time around the 300s, around the early 270 to 300, whatever. And then it sits there, and it's just sort of like, it just belongs to a certain group of Alexandrian Jews who are interested in this stuff. And then the Jerusalemites take it back to their city, and they had these texts. The average person is not reading that text yet, not right away. It takes a century and a half for people to start knowing about this Torah. And it's like, finally, all of a sudden, according to the evidence of the archaeology, in the 150s, and it actually makes sense that it's the 150s because it's right after the Hasmonean revolt. And the Hasmonean revolt, according to the text itself, makes it clear that there was a huge conservative push in Judea to follow only Yahweh and to follow the Mosaic law. So it's finally around the 150s BCE when Judaism becomes a thing. And then only 150 years later, Jesus is born. Christianity is not that far off from Judaism. Most people think Judaism is like thousands of years before Christianity. No, they're like in almost a century apart from each other. That's it. They come at the same time.
Yeah,
and
just
like
of
history,
just like the worship of Aten, and the monism in Egypt in the 14th BC. You can see Mediterranean society was free of monism until the late second or first. What date would you put it at? When does the monism?
You know what? You're not going to like this, but I read a lot of pre-Socratic shit.
Yeah,
those pre-Socratics flirted with monism, but not in a monotheistic way.
Yeah,
just in a sense that they believe, and this is very Platonic. Plato thought this too. And Plato, and some of the pre-Socratics before Plato, Thales is one of these, the arche, the one, the first one, the prince, the highest, the one, the hen. Yeah. And they thought that there was this one above all the cosmos. And this one produces, eros from the chaos. And then you get, so that they still accept Hesiod, they still accept Homer, but what they're doing is they're saying that these gods are under some one. So that idea, that monism idea, to me, starts around the 6th, 5th century BCE, where you get monism, and I think it's a pre-Socratic idea. But like I said, it's not in the way that not in the way that it's done by Judeans and Christians in the 1st century. It's not. They take monism, they put it on steroids. Right. Because the pre-Socratics were very specific about the one. There is no, you and I don't even talk to this one. We have daemons in between. We cannot talk to the one. It's way beyond our comprehension. This is what Heraclitus would say, or Parmenides.
Okay, so if you're tracing it through the Greek pre-Socratics, doesn't it make sense that the Septuagint is the original language? These people are coming through Alexandria, being educated in Greek in Alexandria. Doesn't it make much more historical sense that Hebrew is not the original language, that this is a Greek work that's filtering through Greek ideas that you just pointed out? The influence of Mother Greek was so great that Hebrew was nothing then. It was nothing. It was liturgical. It was gone. As a matter of fact, I don't think we can even say it was liturgical anymore. Because if you're saying Judaism gets here, starts being practiced as a monist religion in the 2nd or 1st century, we have to say, those traditions are fake. They didn't have any traditions.
So that's when they bring back Hebrew and they start writing in Hebrew at that time, because they're writing in Greek before that. They are
right. No, and they're speaking Greek.
They all have Greek names. Aristobulus is a Greek name. And Aristobulus, he's like reformers. You know what I mean?
People don't understand. They think the Jews in Alexandria were all reactive against Hellenism. They weren't, right? No. There's plenty of the population that had been speaking Greek, had been raised Greek, and had access to Greek education that you don't need another class of people to follow it. You've got other people who are supporting it. You know what I mean? So,
but just like monism is an idea that seems to have been like played around with by the pre-Socratic Greeks. The Platonists and Plato himself, in his nomoi, in his laws, wrote about the gymnasium being a place of evil. And you can tell this is Plato late in his life, where he's an old loser. Because if you read Plato's earlier works, I love early Plato. In the Symposium is amazing, writing about Eros and love and Dionysus. But this later Plato, homosexuality is wicked, evil. You need to get rid of it. The gymnasium needs to be eradicated. He's turning into a conservative, like full blown. And those ideas, I think, and so does Gamerkin think, that's what you get with. I think Judaism is being influenced by Platonism. That's what I think is happening. I think it's like Platonism on steroids.
Yeah, I think some great thinkers would think alike, like Nietzsche would say the same thing. They saw that classical origin, that classical font. And when people realize, your religion goes back to this, like, hey, by the way, and this is my next question, people are going to say that you are crazy if you start showing them that Judaism began as late as the 2nd and 1st. What are you going to do? I mean, what are you going to do?
I'm going to do exactly what Jonathan Edler said when I asked him, when I paraphrased what what's his name, Dan said, 700s. I'm going to say, how do you know that? Show me the evidence. I'm like, look, we have evidence of. We know what it looks like. We know what archaeological sites looks like. We know there was people in Egypt doing circumcision. We even know there's other places doing circumcision, like up in the north, in I think Assyria, they're doing certain types of it. So this practice is around, but they're not doing it in Judea all the way up until 150s. Nobody's doing it, and that's one of the most important laws according to the story of Abraham. 7th day, your child should be circumcised. And they're not doing it. And they're eating pork. And they're worshiping other gods. And they're minting coins with Athena on it. So my thing would be show me where people are starting to show knowledge of the Torah. And the answer to that question is the evidence shows it happened sometime in the 3rd or 2nd century BC. Period. You just can't find evidence. And any other claim, like when Dan says all confident, we scholars all think that it happened in the 700s. Why not 1300 BC then? What's the difference? Because your evidence is exactly the same. There's no fucking difference between 700 and 900 and 950, 1370. You're just making shit up. Why 700s? And it's it is weird. And I'm not, I know he's a Mormon. It is odd that in the Mormon tradition, there is a prophet, one of the prophets, I think it's Nehi or whatever, Nehi or Lehi, I don't even know. I do not study that shit at all. It's totally off my radar. I have no idea what I'm talking about. So I'm just gonna give a little warning. I have no idea what I'm saying, but I do know that prophet supposedly lived in the 700s in Egypt. So it makes sense why someone would want to say that Moses had to have been around in the 700s because my prophet needs to hear about Moses, or else the whole thing blows up.
Right.
So there's a theological reason why he wants to push him into the 700s. Notice how he threw in that little and maybe 800s. Why did you say that? What made you say that? Like what happened in your brain that made you say maybe 800s? Is there some sort of evidence in the 800s that we can look at? No. You just said that randomly.
Yeah.
It's so odd.
You know what that is? That's that funny burning feeling you get in your nethers when you're in the back alley and you're like, that little touch that he added, maybe a little bit early. You just look, you could have said that for 500 years, either way of your mark, and with the same assurance, you know what I mean? And that's why when he said about the Christ thing, he said preposterous. That is the act of the, it's not cowardice. It's projecting a confidence that will float your point, right? You don't care about evidence. The guy that you interviewed, that dude is obviously built his career on evidence and handling evidence.
Look at this.
Yeah,
All the source that I got.
That's what we need.
So look at Lehi from the Book of Mormon. He lived 600 7th century BC. So think about it. He needs Moses to be around in the 700s or the 7th century BC for this to work. If Moses is not around before Lehi, Mormonism's dead in the water, gone. It's impossible for this random guy living in Jerusalem to be one of the few people who knows who Moses is. You know what I mean? So that's all. I'm just saying, like, the guy he claims to be a descendant of Joseph.
So
just making shit up. Like, what's the difference between this and saying, I don't know, the Torah existed 900 BC? Why not? Yeah. They're both the same claim. They both have no evidence.
Right.
It's just
It's
baseless claims. It's all it is.
And you can get away with it, right? Because this is what you do as a monist religion. You have to re-educate people into a history that you've crafted. That's what monism does, is it tries to hijack culture by splitting the timeline into another. You're in another mental world where you think this is your history. Imagine how many Jewish people across the planet. Imagine how they would have to come to grips. I mean, what would the thinking be? What if I just found out I thought my culture was ancient? Ancient was the bedrock and foundation of the 10 Commandments, and now I find out a bunch of Greeks were moving through this part of the Mediterranean and bumped up against the Phoenicians there, right? And by the way, for those of you who like Phoenician, how much literature was left behind? Not much. So you know what? Mother Greek killed you too, right? But
by the way, another claim that's made too is so some of the stuff that they find in these older Babylonian myths that make their way into the Old Testament, they use that as sort of like a way to like leverage. Oh, it's really old because it's got these texts. But those texts, those very same texts, are also cited by Greeks living in the Hellenistic era. So those texts that argument's dead because those texts are still around in the same time periods that we're talking about. So that doesn't make it older. Those texts are older, but the texts are still around in later times. And people still don't know how to read and write in cuneiform up until this, I think, 100 AD is when cuneiform dies finally. So people still knew. There was one of the scribes of Alexander the Great using cuneiform. Today King Alexander has died. We have that. So that's another nonsense thing. The other one they'll point to is like there's a character, and this is what Kip was saying to me, and this is a good point Kip made. There's a character from the Bible, Balaam, son of Peor, the prophet, and they actually did find a text inscribed on a wall where this guy's mentioned, and it's in some sort of building that existed probably in the 7th, 6th century BC, something like that. Now, that's to me is interesting because, okay, now we have a prophet who's mentioned in an older text that makes his way into a newer text. But that would be like saying Homer should be dated to 1350 BC because Agamemnon's in the story. Agamemnon is a Mycenaean king who's placed in history at the time of the Trojan War, which is way back in the Bronze Age. So characters existing late in a text later, it's if there was more of that going on, I would be more convinced. But just having one or two guys to point to, I can't. It's just not enough for me. You know.
I saw that you were looking into the medical text there and wandering through, and I wanted to ask you, why is it that we have medical texts from Egypt, we have medical texts from Rome, and we have medical texts from Greece, and Greece has by far the most, right? The most advanced stuff, right?
The Sanskrit has some medical text too.
Real medical. Why is it that we don't have any Oscan, Umbrian, or Hebrew medical text? Very same reason. People think that Hebrew was actually spoken when Jesus Christ was walking around. They were like, "Shalom, Jesus." He was like, "Shalom." Right? No, they didn't have Hebrew. They didn't have Aramaic. They had Greek. And people say, oh, the apostles that wrote the Gospels and whatnot, that those people were originally, they speak Hebrew. They when they go home from their lunch break, right? They speak Hebrew. That's a joke. That's a joke. Those are all native speakers. I'm telling you, 35 years of reading Greek. I'm telling you, those are all native speakers. Your little theory about there being Hebrew there is a giant joke, but it's not funny because it's meant to alter that historical timeline so that people in the future will think, oh, this was the past. No, it wasn't, as Neil showed tonight. The stuff didn't even show up until the second, brah. Right? Which makes sense. Do you understand what the powder, the powder that you just uncovered? This is real powder. This is the good stuff, because Jesus is not that far then from the very origin of Judaism, from the very earliest monist Jewish cult. Jesus is only a century and a half away. That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing.
Yeah. Some of the Greek texts that I'm reading, some of the translations that I'm reading, from Loeb. For example, Polybius and Sallust, they cite Punic texts that are lost. But so the Punic had a writing culture. The Punic is just another word for Phoenician. It's like Latin word for Phoenician. The Punics, the Carthaginians and the Phoenicians, they did have a writing culture, and they did write like philosophical, medical, and they wrote agricultural stuff. But we lost it all. The only way we have it is from people like Polybius and Sallust citing it. So they write about people like Mago is one of these Carthaginian writers. There's a couple other ones. And they did have like somewhat of a literate culture going on in the seafaring Phoenician world. But you're right. In Hebrew, it's like a black hole of there's no grammarians. You don't have you have grammarians in Latin. You have grammarians in Greek. You have grammarians in Sanskrit. Like they're very literate. These are very literate cultures writing about writing about letters, writing about writing. Like, but you can't find something like that. All we have is biblical text. And then when you get to the Dead Sea Scrolls, that's when you find like laws for the community. That's it. You find stuff like that, and then there's a big black hole, and then you go all the way back to Ugarit. So in between Ugarit and the Old Testament, there's like a big black hole where all you get is inscriptions. But You also have Elephantine, and everybody, well, you know, Elephantine, it's Aramaic. No, they're Jews. They call themselves Judeans. That fled the wrath of the Assyrians. And so there you do have we do have some stuff, but all of it points to not knowing who Moses is, not knowing who Abraham is, and being a part of the regular Mediterranean world like everyone else.
I like how you said it. You just brought it all together and said, look, this is the Mediterranean, baby. And they're just developing. It's not that there aren't cultural Jews, right? Ethnic Jews, but they aren't practicing Judaism. Right?
Yeah, they're not separating themselves off from the rest of the world like people
Right.
think they do.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful thing to know.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
People should know that.
And I know a lot of people that I interacted with in Israel. And by the way, your guest, I think, was involved in the dig at Tel Megiddo, right? So
yes.
That's really cool. That's heads up. I salute, right?
You might
there.
have ran into him in the 90s. When were you there?
Yeah, 91. I was there in 91. Yeah.
Might have ran into him. Yeah, he probably was there.
I bet he probably didn't remember me because I was just a dirt mover, you know what I mean? So, but I could tell him he'll remember if because of the floor, because of the temple floor that our group found, he'll remember. I'll tell him I was with them. Love it. I want to ask you though, as you peel back this layer, you're going to be dealing now with scholars of the Bible who are going to have that mindset that, oh, the prophet Isaiah, this is Iron Age, this is this time, kingdom of David, kingdom of this and that, for which there's nothing, right? What are you going to do in order to push that knowledge forward? Like if you're a part of the museum and you're trying to push it forward, what do? You just make documentaries and just kind of try to expose the real history? What do you do?
That's what I said. Last time I was on this channel was probably over a month ago, and I said that in the next couple of days I was dropping that video and responding to some of the stuff that happened in the Dan and Danny video. And I didn't lie about that. That video's been done for like weeks and weeks and weeks. But the reason why I haven't dropped it yet is because I wanted to drop this video first because I used some of the clips for the video. Does that make sense? So you're going to see when I drop the video on my response to some of the stuff that Dan McClellan was saying on Danny's show, which I thought was just a complete shit show, to be honest. Like first of all, the Lucian thing was kind of crazy. Not knowing Lucian, it's like that's the main source for Syrian religion of what is that text called? A Syrian goddess. That's Lucian's work. Like and that's like one of the biggest texts that people go to for Arabian and Syrian religion of the Levant, because that's like all we have other than inscriptions and archaeology. So you can't be an expert in religions and not know Lucian. You have to know Lucian. That was like whoa. And then he's being shown the Hilaria, and any Roman religion expert knows all about Hilaria. This isn't some like back alley random thing that you find in one text. Hilaria is all over the place. And when he's being shown the Hilaria, his face, he goes like this. He does that. He goes, huh? Like he's never seen it before. And this is like, read Mary Beard's book, Roman Religion, which, by the way, how does he not know this? Anyone who studies ancient religion, you got to know Mary Beard's book at least. It's one of those introduction books. You agree with me on that? It's one of those introduction books that you have to have.
Yeah. No, I used to teach the course, classical religion, and I used her textbook. I totally disagree with her on some things, but
me too.
Her textbook, yeah, and
I agree with you on that. But here's the thing, though. She talks about the Hilaria and compares it to Easter, just like you and I do, because it's just like, why wouldn't you? There's so many parallels. And she stays out of her lane, and she doesn't study Hebrew Bible and New Testament. So she doesn't make conclusions and says one's copying the other. All she's doing is pointing out, whoa, look at this Hilaria festival where they celebrate a death and resurrection of a god. Cool. That's it. She just gives you the facts, and then you do what you want with it. But Dan, when he's being showed this information, he tilts his head and goes, huh? That's not right. It's like, dude, how do you not know about the Hilaria? To not know about the Hilaria is a big deal because you make it your business to refute anybody who tries to argue about, you know, paganism influencing Christianity, which I get that there's a lot of really bad information online. A lot of people who just are like making shit up about Horus having 12 disciples and being crucified. That didn't happen in the sources. But at the end of the day, there are some legitimate parallels and there are some legitimate sources that people do need to know about because it's fascinating stuff. And he's out there like putting his foot down, saying there's nothing here. Dying and rising gods don't exist. This is all made up nonsense. Anybody who talks about this doesn't know that. And it's like, if you don't even know what Hilaria is, then why are you even talking about James Fraser? Because that's like half of James Fraser's book. Hilaria is all. That's like not half of his book, but that's like 10% of his book has to do with Attis and the Hilaria. So it's like, how do you not know if you don't know Hilaria? Then why are you even talking about James Fraser? Because you obviously never read James Fraser. You just now you're just making shit up at this point. So you'll see. I'm getting all fired up about it, but I got some stuff to say. I got some stuff to say.
Look at how fired up you get. Everybody in Satanic Congregation, that's fired up, right? For those sources, because you're just protecting those sources. I love that. I love that. I want to ask you one last question that's pressing. I want to know, once you bring this to people, their response is going to be, because it's always been, something's wrong with you. Right. The reason I was going to tell you, the reason that people still think the Old Testament or the Torah was originally written in Hebrew is only because of that first BC and first AD culture that was coming up, that was creating that monist propaganda. Right. If the text is only as old as the 3rd century, it means all of those claims about the land and about who it belongs to, all of those are created. Those are not historical actualities. That's the creation and of the 3rd or 2nd century. Yeah.
And you don't even know how right you are, because we're looking at this, it's just a historical thing. Israel existed at the time of Nebuchadnezzar. And we know this because Nebuchadnezzar brags about taking over Israel. They get stomped out. They lose their kingdom. And then they're subject to whoever's in power, whether it be the Assyrians, the Babylonians, the Persians, the Greeks, the Seleucids, the Ptolemies, and they're just kind of waiting there. It's not until the Hasmonean period, as we mentioned, after the Maccabean revolt, where Israel finally gets their own state back around 164 BC. So it makes sense. Like you said, there's no they don't own anything. They're just people that live there. They don't own anything. And then they do end up getting their state at that time. But like literally less than a century later, they're being sacked by Pompey already. Done. Lose it. They lose the Rome. They won't even hold it for 100 years. 63 BCE. The Maccabean revolt was in 164. So that's 100 years. But even before, so like, you're right. The point you're making about who owns what, that's such a muddy waters gray area, because there really is no ownership over anything. It's just people that live there. You know what I mean?
They're all getting sacked, right, by the big powers in the area, right? It's all of that movement of power.
Herod the Great is making deals with the Romans, saying, "We'll be your client state. You know, we'll watch your borders for you. Right. Just make sure you take care of us and send us the needs that we need. Like, you know, send us troops so we need it." And that's what happened. It's almost like America today, how we support Israel. That's how the Romans were for Israel for a while. Yeah. Until Nero, and then Nero changed that. And then, but then they went back to doing what they were doing again, back to your client state. And then Hadrian had some things to say. But that was the end of it. After Hadrian, they never went back until 1948. So you can literally count less than I don't even know. I'm not going to say it right now, but it's not. They don't have the land for thousands of years. That's not a thing.
Right. No. And the archaeological remains expose that, right? That they would have way more of these settlements that they would find, way more of the cities. I was at what they called the Palace of Ahab, right? And it was like, dude, is that all they found? Right? Was there no other habitation here? So a lot that theological drive to say, oh, it must be the palace of Ahab during the kingdom of so and so is just an attempt to fit on that biblical narrative. Now, if we push the biblical narrative all the way down to the 3rd and 2nd centuries and we say, look, this stuff is coming from Greek, it's not coming from Hebrew. They're back translating it into Hebrew to try to create a tradition for themselves, and they're doing it out in the middle of nowhere. Right? Why are those people with the Dead Sea Scrolls, the ones that have both the Greek and then the Hebrew back translation? Why are they out in the middle of the desert? Where are all the libraries in Jerusalem? And people will say, well, there aren't any. How about the libraries? How about the libraries of Ashurbanipal? People say, oh, look, we have this great Nineveh. We have this great library of so-and-so. And they open it up. You look at the stuff that's in that, Neil. It's garbage. You're not finding epics and scientific documents. And here's the government and the history section. You're not finding that. You're finding laundry lists of shit that Lugal Zagacy, emperor of everything,
King's List
taken for his.
You get mythology, you get King's List, you get law codes. Kind of what you get. And you're right, and a lot of ostraka, which are just like little notes, like, "Hey, meet me in 6 months in this place." Like,
why don't you get philosophy? Why don't you get philosophy out of it?
That's a good question. I think philosophy is a product of Persian period, especially in the Middle East. I mean, obviously, there's not. I mean, philosophy, depending on how we define it, but like strict philosophical thinking, that's a Persian period idea. I think. I think your pre-Socratics so predate those Persians. Give me the name. Besides, you're right. Some of those pre-Socratics were around during the Assyrians. When the Assyrians are sacking Judea, there's Greek pre-Socratics writing stuff already at the time in the 600s. No, you're not lying. Thales, even Sappho.
Yeah.
Sappho was alive before the Persians were in power.
Yeah.
Sappho was alive during the Neo-Babylonian Empire.
Also not getting any lyric, right?
Those Greeks do predate a lot of these big swings in history.
Yeah, the Greeks are making those, even the lyric poetry.
This is such a good point. Right? This is such a good point that you're making, because there's a myth that Greek influence starts with Alexander the Great. Right. Before that, there's no Greek influence. That's wrong. Greek influence starts way before that. As we mentioned, the Athenian coins, the coins with Zeus on it. Greeks have a lot of influence, and they're very cultural people. People like the Minoans and the Mycenaeans, and they're adopting the way they dress and the purple and all that. Purple dye from Minoans. A lot of the culture does come from the Greeks. Even if it's Mycenaean Greeks, Minoan Greeks, or even Hittites, who are very closely related through their Pelasgian ancestry, we'll say, right? And they're using the same alphabet, and the Lydians are writing, and they're basically is very Greek, close to Greek, Lydian. I think Lydian's considered a Greek, right?
No, I'm not sure about that, to be honest. Because usually you can see Lydian roots very obviously. I don't know to what degree. It's the Ionian. It's the cousin of the Ionian that it's like Aramaic up against. Yeah.
It's like Lydian and Greek is like Aramaic and Hebrew. They're very close. They have a lot of the same vocabulary, maybe a little bit different grammar, but they worship the same gods. Lydians are worshiping Aphrodite. They're worshiping Artemis. They're worshiping Apollo and Zeus, and they're writing in the same. So it's the same cultural. Yeah. It's the same, and I think the Hittites are like that too.
Well, hang on though. Let me ask you this question. So you do see it on the Greek side. You see, this is a Lydian root. But here's the question: how come there aren't any Lydian texts left? Why don't we have Lydian
But
epic.
I will
Right.
one up you on that. The Lydians invented minted coins. They get credit for
Okay. Okay.
the idea of having a minted coin
Yeah.
with a face on it, or like that's Lydian. Lydians
Yeah.
invented that.
What
Croatian
was the? I
was a-
bet you they used the Greek language to do so. I
oh,
bet you they did.
They did. It's the Greek alphabet. You find all
Can
the
you can you see how the Greek language just absorbed? It's such a superior machine, right? That people like Marcus Aurelius were like, I'm going to use it, and when I write philosophical documents, I'm going to use the Greek because it's capable. It's capable of doing that. It's not a race thing. The funny thing is, this is what really shocks me. Life is not about your race. It has nothing to do with your race. It's totally incident. It's about your language, because history shows that the more powerful the language, the more the spread. And with that spread of that language comes more technical knowledge, comes more development, right? You get philosophy only when you have a language that can convey the philosophy. And I love it. I want to make love to Mother Greek. That's what I want to do.
Look at this real quick. I just want to pull this up real quick. It's the last thing, because it talks about Croesus, and this shows you how close Lydians and Greeks are. And it says Croesus is credited as issuing the first true gold coins with the standard circulation. Blah 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 blah. But look at this. He claims descent from the original Agamemnon who conquered Troy. So they're reading Homer all the way in Asia Minor. Like Greek influence is everywhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it is a Greek song, remember? Homer's a Greek song. So,
Homer's Greek.
Yeah, right. I love it, man. I love it. That's absolutely gorgeous. Neil, thank you for coming tonight. I want to point out to everybody that Neil's going to come out with his new interview and take a look at it. Love it. When are you going to launch that?
Well, the one that we showed the preview of today, that's out right now.
Oh, it's out right now. Go watch it, people. As soon as you're done here, go watch it. And
whenever you're ready to watch it.
Yeah, and let's start it. What you're going to do is you're going to start some kind of giant discussion in the world of history is what you're going to do. And religion, people are going to they're going to say something like you're demon possessed. I can feel it. I can feel them doing it right now. That's the kind of stuff they're going to think.
It's actually got 15,000 views in the first 12 hours, so it's doing pretty well.
What are you doing slumming with me, man? What are you do? 15,000?
You get more live views than I do now. You get thousands of people watching you when you go live. So I'm nothing compared to you now.
No, absolutely not. We do it. Why do we do this? That's the best way to end it.
We do it because we love it and we're inspired by the muse. Seriously.
Yeah.
I'm not doing this because I'm trying to grift or make money. I'm doing this because it's my passion. Because I love it. Because I'm inspired to do it. Straight up. We both agree on that part.
Yeah. You can totally see that. You can totally see that with you too, Neil, that you do it. There's a zeal that you're doing it. And I thank Satanic Congregation. I think everybody that watches Initiating Apocalypse and all the little bits that I do, I think those people all appreciate that. I don't mean to speak for everybody, but you know what I mean? I think they really appreciate that. And that's why you do such a great job. You're going to go have some great interviews coming up and stuff like that too. So there'll be plenty.
Too.
I know you're going
to documentary that I've been working on for a long time now. That's going to come out after the Dan response video. Is going to be a video about the Dark Ages, comparing the Dark Ages to the classical period. And I already recorded most of it. That's on its way too.
Make sure and get those really skinny.
I found an article from this douchey Bible scholar nerd. I don't even know if he has a PhD. I don't think he does. I think he has like a master's or something. I think he like failed out or something. But he's one of these like Bible scholar type of people. You know, he calls himself the history for atheists. He has a whole article about how the Dark Ages is such a bad term. You shouldn't use it because it was actually really good. Christians were actually really cool.
Right.
Bullshit. I'm going to show with evidence that's bullshit. That's the Dark Ages. Even though that's a term that's obviously subjective in itself, but If we define it by literature, which is what Petrarch and who are those guys that talked about the Dark Ages? Petrarch is the guy he coined the term. But those Renaissance guys who use that term Dark Ages, they were using that term for literature. They weren't talking about the economy. They weren't talking about armies. They weren't talking about logistics. They're talking about literature, text. And if you take the definition the way Petrarch you wanted the definition to be used, he's absolutely right. That it was Dark Ages. The texts are trash. Someone said to me one time, they go, "What about Beowulf?" Beowulf. That's all you can come up with. From 500 AD till 1300, you got Beowulf. You're gonna compare that to Homer? Are you kidding me? Can you tell me one character from Beowulf? I don't know shit about Beowulf. Nobody does. It's not a household. Nobody's talking about Beowulf.
It's had such a
digging. You're just digging. You're just trying to find something. Oh, what about King Arthur? Okay, fine. There's one.
I don't know. I've read some of that King Arthur stuff in the medieval Latin, and it's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. So I don't get in that either. It does not
stack up to Euripides and Homer and Sappho.
No.
And
Pindar.
Come on, we can go on for days.
Yeah.
The list goes on. There's no comparison. Not until the Renaissance when people start writing good shit again.
You got the Loeb series for you to be able to peruse through digitally. Were you surprised at how many Greek authors are in it?
Oh yeah, it's crazy. But you know what else surprises me is how much we don't have, and how much, because you and I both know, because we both read a lot of primary sources because we just love to do it. They cite a lot. Those Greeks were citing stuff. Like, you don't get a lot of citations in like the Hebrew Bible. No one's citing anything. But these Greeks, like Herodotus, he's mentioning other historians before him, and he's mentioning the names of their books. And other people will even mention those same names in books. And you can make a list of hundreds, maybe 1,000 people who are cited, who we lost.
Oh, yeah. Just in Galen alone, because he is always citing older physicians. He loves to cite Hellenistic physicians, and most of them are names that we don't. Who the hell is that? Right? And there's dozens upon dozens upon dozens of citations that he makes. I mean, it's uncountable. So all of that literature that we don't have, that survived because some monk in the Dark Ages wiped his buttocks with it.
Yeah.
You know that. Oh God.
That's exactly what. They stopped preserving the good, beautiful, amazing text of the polytheistic world that's full of color and three-dimensional, and everyone has different ways of looking at the world. So this one-dimensional, dark, cold, just no life. It's just lacking life. That's what it feels like. And they're all writing about the same topics. Maximus the Confessor wrote another treatise on the Trinity. Oh, how God and Father are one and the same. And how dare you question that? How dare you use your mind and think, well, how can one person be the same as another one? Then that's all you get. You get non-stop treatises on the Trinity for 500 years. Great. And Beowulf.
Imagine, Neil, imagine in that society. All you'd have to do is transport yourself back for like 2 weeks, and you'd be like, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm absolutely not going to live in a world where there's a church or a monist assembly that controls everything around it. And and people say, oh, you can't say that about the church. Yes, you actually can. Historically, look what happens. And it all starts with Julian, and he's the first one yelling, saying, you cannot let the monists, and I use my word monists, it's not my word, but the word I'm using, you cannot let the Christians, he says, you cannot let them take over. Yeah. Atheists. Yeah.
No, but he's right. He's right, though. They are different. It's a different type of monism without the gods. The pre-Socratic monism still has the gods. You still have Zeus. You still have Aphrodite. There's just in this universe with us. It's a whole different kind of monism going on. Yeah.
Something inherently bad with creating a monist funnel cloud that sucks all the civilization into it to its ruin. Yeah, definitely. Thank you for coming tonight, Neil. I want to tell my audience before I sign off that I am beginning my new classes next week, Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. I've had such a demand for applications. I've got way more applications than I can even think about covering. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep people in the loop by Sunday night, making a little announcement about what you can do to go forward with classes for people who want to learn Greek. And that's I appreciate the fact that people are showing that much interest. This is more demand than a dozen universities get in a year. So gorgeous job. Let's keep rocking it. And I'm going to serve to the best of my capacity to get everybody who wants to trained and functional in the Greek. Fantastic. Thank you for coming tonight, Neil, and I'll let you have the last word.
Hail Satan.
Hail Satan, indeed. Thanks for coming.
Was on purple, Medea will work you. Wait on the triple beam, 1, 2, 1, 2. Seashells by the ton, Athena's love, rub-a-dub-dub. I'm flipping tables, cashing checks, take it to the bank. At the gates of Babylon, the wolf man regulates. Avalon, Lady Medea. Lapis lazuli lines the walls, the muse sings with me. Extra illumination for the vibration. I have under me the knowledge of our Genesis, crystal towers, the Punisher, Frank Castle, purple rain. For the muse I sing her favorite song all night long. No stems, no seeds that you don't need. Got a bag of goodies, ice creamy cream. Hail Satan, close my eyes forever. Coming through in waves. Powerhouse on the hill, house of Frankenstein, darkness through dreams. I dream of Genie.
Hot purple, Medea she'll work you. Hot purple, hot purple, hot purple, Medea she'll work you. Hot purple, hot purple, hot purple, Medea she'll work you. Hot purple, hot purple, hot purple, Medea she'll work you. Hot purple, hot purple, hot purple, baby.